Rick Venturi right there on the call, the Colts Radio Network, and the Colts hanging on yesterday, 38-30 the final, as they remain in the semblance of a playoff picture. What are they up to, like 16, 17%, I think, to cash it in? We'll go over those if you want to hear those a little bit later on with you, but we do have to discuss the game itself. Hey, I'm JMV. Thank you for joining us. Nathaniel is in today for James, who is on vacation. Happy holidays to everybody out there. I can tell that we have a lot of last-minute folks shopping because every major place, intersection-wise, is slammed with you guys trying to go out there and get that last-minute thing. I will say this. It does my heart good because that is old school. For somebody that loves the mall experience and would love to see the mall experience reemerge, even though it won't because of Amazon and doing your business online, it made me feel good to see everything crammed up. Now, it should because it's the day before Christmas Eve. But I love to see holiday shopping going on out there as long as it's not me spending that particular cash. So, yes, have at it, but make sure you take us with you today. Next 2 days, we're going to be off. That's tomorrow, and then on Wednesday, back with you on Thursday, and then on Friday, Tom's Watch Bar downtown with you. I'm going to say that's a Bud Light Blue Friday. I'm pretty sure that is coming up on Friday. But we'll be there for you and cannot wait to get things in gear later on this week, and then we'll move toward 2025. All right, so we'll go over the whole playoff scenario stuff because next week's going to be interesting. Chargers, Broncos, you want them all to lose. I'm assuming at some point, too, if you end up getting Carson Wentz in the final week of the regular season, can you imagine if Carson Wentz is in there for the Chiefs and you're going to rely upon Carson Wentz again? I will say this. Yesterday, the running game makes you wonder why you were unable to utilize it to more of a strength over the course of the season. It makes you wonder if you had a more balanced attack, meaning if you're capable of getting down the field through the air, with the exception of maybe a couple of different times, how things could be different. It just makes you wonder. Now, quickly, your wondering is shattered because you also recognize just how stinking bad the Tennessee Titans are. But, I mean, hell, they were good enough to get back in it and then cause a little bit of concern for all the white T-shirts on the empty seats yesterday. But Colts get over 38-30, and Jonathan Taylor had one that he's going to put up in the actually, it's funny. You think back to last week, there's no doubt lowest point, career, maybe the highest point of the career this week. 29, 218, 7.5 per carry. Had a 70-yard run for a touchdown. I think a 65 or a 60-plus yarder for a touchdown yesterday. Anthony Richardson, 9 for 70. That's on the ground. Through the air, only 11 times. Now, there was a point in that game, and you saw it. And this is why I talk about all the time. I know this looks good. This is window dressing right now. And I'm glad you're feeling good about it. I don't want you to feel bad. I'm rocking the ALL shirt. I don't want you to bring me down, so don't bring me down. And I'm not trying to bring you down. But there was a point, 12 consecutive times the Colts ran the football yesterday after that interception that Richardson threw, and you just knew that they didn't want to go back to it that often again. And in fact, late in the game, they had to, and Richardson actually put that one on the money on Michael Pittman Jr. I was thinking about and that moved the chains and basically put things out of reach yesterday. Can you imagine if that thing would have been thrown over the head? So let's keep in mind, while they were victorious and you're still in it, and I want you to feel good, especially for the holiday season, this is still the same damn thing. This is still the same thing. This is a team that is pretty damn far away. And I hope they get the opportunity to push it again, the length of the table on this. But it is pretty damn far away, no matter what yesterday told you. People were telling me that maybe it was a bit of a tease. I don't know if it's a tease. I'm glad that they're hanging in there. But that's not going to change my mind. My mind's not going to be easily changed that, oh, yeah, well, obviously now it's in the right direction. You wait until you get this thing in the rear view and you look more in-depth at it. And then you ask me if you're ready to go ahead and sit through another season in 2025 like that as a test pattern. As a, well, now's the time. Last year wasn't the time. The year before that wasn't, but now's the time. So hang with it as long as you can. Hopefully they get a little bit of help. And again, we'll go over those scenarios in just a bit regarding the help that is necessary for the Colts. But they do get a win yesterday. I thought DeForest Buckner was really good. Kenny Moore, who joined Jake a little bit early, I thought Kenny was really good. I mean, the guys that performed are the guys that you would normally suggest or would expect to be really good. And they were. The atmosphere, if you're asking about that, if you're at the game, a lot of empty seats. That's what happens this time of year when, fans think that they have seen this again. It's the same old story. But you just keep on winning and you see what happens. So we get a lot to get to over the course of the afternoon regarding the Colts as well. I'm going to get back to Friday, and I don't think we're split down the middle. I think most of the people here are IU fans. I was disappointed in how they handled it. Everybody's going to make light of what Signetti had to say before the game or the fact that he just went on ESPN College Game Day itself. I thought that was more minor, but he goes out there and he does the same thing that he's done the entirety of the year. I mean, he's talking with bravado. Yeah, he's calling his shot. And what happens? At some point, somebody's going to get you, and it was Notre Dame that ended up getting them. And I don't even have a problem with that because that's just been his M.O., and that M.O. had worked all season long. So you might as well go ahead and roll with it. The problem I had is the other thing that worked all season long, going for it. Keeping, as they say, this is used often, but keeping the pedal down, the gas pedal down. Hell, it didn't even seem like that they stomped on it at all on Friday. And that, I think, is what's so disappointing to me. I mean, go out with a blaze of glory. Now, it said this. I mean, in all likelihood, what do you got to lose? IU probably will never be back in that situation again. Hopefully they are. Hopefully it's a different program. I mean, you can see right now ESPN is trying to etch in stone, hoping that a situation like this never happens. And what Kirk Herbstreit has been saying, and we'll go over some of those words a little bit later on, has so much more to do with just getting the who's who of college football in. It is complete and utter garbage. I'm glad that they brought IU and SMU. Yeah, was I put off about SMU and Penn State? Was I put off about IU and Notre Dame? Not for the reasons that you think. I just wanted to see IU not be so stinking conservative. The whole attitude of what the hell might as well kind of went out the window. That's what bums me out. I mean, hell, SMU, you fully expect that going into Happy Valley on a Saturday like that? And you're shocked that they're going to get depanced? Who cares? Happens all the time. And we mentioned this football thing wants to be so much like the month of March in basketball, more than occasionally you get matchups like that. So what? So Alabama now all of a sudden is deserving? What do they have, losses to Vanderbilt, losses to Oklahoma? And it's funny, Kirk Herbstreit goes from being one of IU's biggest advocates a couple of weeks ago against his Buckeyes to being the eye of the storm as to why this can't be done this way ever again. From him to Feinbaum, and then you get Shannon Sharp and Kirk Herbstreit. I love Shannon Sharp wants to fight Kirk Herbstreit. It is so stupid. Just fight. Don't act like you're going to fight. Everybody makes fun of act like you're going to fight guy. All you have to do is watch a game, watch an NBA game, watch an NFL game, watch a baseball game. Act like you want to fight guy that really doesn't want to fight. Here's the other thing, too. We wouldn't have this conversation otherwise. And this is a part of what you pay to be in this rarefied era of college football. So I would remind IU fans to not get bent out of shape about it. You were there. You lost by 10. I mean, when people, because we live in a world of box score readers. Dudes that didn't watch the games. Dudes that didn't care to watch it, but will tell you by reading the box score or the final exactly how they felt it went down. Yeah, no doubt that it was not as close at all as the final score would indicate. But we're going to live in a world where a lot of people go, oh, you know what? It wasn't as bad as everything else. And then the best part about it is you get ESPN bitching and complaining about that the entirety of the time on Saturday. And then you get Tennessee waltzing into Columbus. And speaking of getting depanced, absolutely depanced. That was hilarious. I got nothing against Tennessee. I mean, hell, Josh Heupel looks like he could hang out and drink a lot of beer with us. I'm sure he could drink a lot of beer. But it was funny the way that it all turned out. But this is what you have to be when you're a part of this. So hopefully you're able to get used to it. Hopefully this isn't a one-off and you just disappear after this. Hopefully you end up like a Gonzaga of basketball and you hang around and then everybody loves you and then all of a sudden everybody hates your guts. Like right now. They went for like 7 years where they were so lovable and then everybody started hating their guts. And you hate them now. Oh, they're overrated. Oh, they're overrated, okay. What team do you like? This is what you got to pay to be a part of it. You get a lot of Nimrods that end up saying some stuff about you. It was a fantastic watershed season. And I just sit here before you incredibly happy. I'd say the same thing about any other long-time doormatted program like IU football around here. If Purdue has this historically awful season this year, and then Barry Odom winds them up and they make a run, some incredible run next year, then I'll be just as happy because I want to see these fan bases, especially one for decades that's been absolutely buried in losses, futility, be able for this season to step outside of that and feel happy, and maybe you get something to build on. That's funny about Cignetti, too. The last thing I would expect is for him to get out of character. And I don't say character as if he's acting. That's just who he is. That's how he acts. And I'm assuming he's going to act that way when you play well, and he's going to act that way and end up having to sit in it and own it like Friday night when you don't. Again, my only disappointment was, what the hell? And I was disappointed in Curtis Rourke, who had been so good all season long. I thought, wow, here's the angle for you, Rourke over Leonard, and that didn't happen. Disappointed for IU football fans, but man, you had a hell of a year that you've never had and maybe will never have again. So I'm glad you got to soak in it. That's fun. But I know everybody's getting bent out of shape about what us all. And again, you end up being a soundboard with Herb Street, and that kind of started all this. Who cares? Seriously, who cares? You're there. Wins are still going to matter. They're not all of a sudden going to this committee. And believe me, I mean, committees, come on. But this committee is not all of a sudden going to say, well, wait a minute, you know what Herb Street was saying was right. It is there for the debate and for these knuckleheads to actually lob out fighting terms with one another on these shows where we'd rather be watching like we used to log rolling on ESPN than some of this other crap. It's beautiful. So we can't talk about that college football-wise. Notre Dame just, Notre Dame was Notre Dame. That's who they've been for decades. I mean, hell, for centuries, and that's who they're going to maintain in being. And IU certainly met their match on Friday night. So we can hit that at 239-1070 if you so desire. We got some college basketball to get to. IU survives Chattanooga on Saturday. Purdue does not survive Bruce Pearl and Auburn. Man, if you haven't seen Auburn, maybe for the first time, if you Boilermaker fans watched them, I've watched them a couple of different times. They are absolutely loaded at every position with a high level of athleticism. And the world without Edey is a tough one when you got all those odds stacked up against you. And Matt told us right here that he wanted to get a challenging schedule to start the season, and he did just that. And Auburn was proving that, no doubt, on Saturday late afternoon. We can get that as well. Hey, listen, last two games, I was really excited on Thursday, and a lot of you said, hey, I don't want to break your stride on this here, but it's just one game. And I realized that. I realized that was just one game in Phoenix on Thursday. I realized last night was one game in Sacramento. But I will tell you as a basketball guy that this product is looking different. And what I mean by different is this Pacer product is looking more like what we expected. Looking more like what you fell in love with a year ago. And I'm not just talking about, the guys being back, and you can tell that's a big deal with Nembhard being back and Shepard being back, and you await the return of Aaron Nesmith. But I'm talking about the ball. Watch the basketball. Seriously, watch the basketball with this group. Now, it's going to stop at Siakam, but you expect that. And it will occasionally stop in Matherin, and you will expect that. But for the most part, what we have witnessed here recently is the ball moving around. It is popping. It is not sticking. And as I've said, you see Tyrese Halliburton orchestrating in a fashion which is necessary. Getting his, and then helping everybody else get theirs more easily, more conveniently, more comfortably. That's what's different. And again, don't get me wrong, Andrew Nembhard being back is a big deal. Ben Shepard being back is a big deal. When Nesmith gets back, there's no question. And I will say that defensively, that has been better too. But the offense, just look and watch the offense. And hopefully in this back-to-back coming up later on tonight in Golden State, that holds true. But watch the ball. When the ball is moving and guys are getting in familiar, comfortable positions in which they can score. And again, the maestro of this, the orchestrator, is Tyrese Halliburton. That will tell you exactly how things are going for this team. And it certainly has. He just simply put, when he is on his, he makes everybody better because that's his gig. That's his job. You saw that in Phoenix on Thursday, and you saw that last night in Sacramento. And what you end up getting out of this is an overall team effort. It's not like Durant getting 37 on Thursday and then everybody else kind of chipping in. All you have to do, there's something else for you box score admirers, observers only to look at. You can look at that and see how the wealth has been spread. That again shows you. Now, guys at the top of the list of production, they're going to show that. But you look at that list and you look at the producers, and they're getting the ball in the position in which they feel most comfortable. And we talk about that a lot in terms of dribbling, getting to that spot on the floor where you want to, where you feel most comfortable, and that's what Halliburton does for his teammates. And you've certainly seen that at the highest, most consistent levels in the last two games. And hopefully for this team, that continues, because when you think about it, on the road in Golden State, back-to-back to close out a 3-game Western road trip coming up later on tonight right here on The Fan. What time do we hit the air with that pregame show-wise, Nathaniel? Look that up for me. I want to make sure. Is it 9, 9:30 maybe? Pat Boylan's going to have you. But you've got coming up Oklahoma City at home, and then back-to-back in Boston with the Celtics.
9:30.
9:30 later on tonight. And if you remember correctly, most recently, Golden State went out and acquired Dennis Schroeder. Yeah, I watched Golden State play. Anybody check out Golden State last week against Memphis? And Steph Curry had no field goals. They lose by 50 plus. Not suggesting that's going to happen later on tonight. But, man, you talk about wanting to be greedy, especially when you look at his schedule up until the new year and even a little bit after that, but certainly until the new year, which is incredibly challenging. We got that at 239-1070. I've got your calls right there. I'd love to hear from you regarding the Colts, where they sit, how confident you are, if you have any confidence whatsoever, or if you're like many, and I'm just going to say it, there are a lot of you out there that I've heard from that think this is all a big waste of time, and the only thing this is going to do if this team goes 9-8, either squeezing into the postseason or not, it is going to continue the thought that they can remain with what they have right now, i.e. running it back again. And you know what? You're 100% right. That's exactly what they'll do if they go 9-8. Either in the postseason or out of the postseason. They will justify with 9-8 saying this is where we are, we're on the move, and everything is all good. And let's face it, we know even with that win, it's a rarity that this thing is good. Unless good or above average is certainly the level of mediocrity. But you're going to end up getting, if you're feeling 9-8 is going to be it, that's what you're going to end up getting. I know the alternative is what? You end up bailing on it? Starting new, starting for the bottom? Let's just face it, if you believe this is the right way to go to get this organization back to where it once was, when you've already seen it how many different times, you're going to have to explain it to me why this thing is going to work finally now. But as it stands, they're right there in at 38-30. Colts over the Titans. Get the Giants coming up next week. And a lot of scoreboard watching, included the Chargers and the Broncos. We'll go over those scenarios with you coming up. Happy holidays to you. That's Nathaniel over there. I'm John. We got a lot to get to. Your calls at 239-1070. Your email address is me, JMV, and 1075thefan.com. AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. My goodness, you guys need that this time of year. AAA's got your back 24/7, 365. But during the holiday season, you got to have it. AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live, the stream, the app, and back with your calls. Jeremiah Johnson live from San Francisco in the 4 o'clock hour. Stephen Holder's going to be here as well. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. I went to the radio booth yesterday and hung out for a couple of minutes before the game with Matt and Rick and Rob up in there, the statistician. Good times to be had by all. Colts win 38-30. Still in this thing, if you want to call it in this thing. Listen, whatever floats your boat, baby. Have some fun with it. I'm not trying to take that away. What I am trying to suggest to you that this shouldn't skew your thought of the future and whether or not you believe in it the way that it is right now. It's okay to have dueling thoughts here. You can be happy and, sidestep your way back in. It's funny. I don't even know if I would feel differently if they were more in one of these terms, in the driver's seat, had they not absolutely imploded in Denver. Or maybe it turns out to be me. I'm the one not with the program. I don't see it. And yesterday didn't recapture any lost feelings about, well, wait a minute, maybe I was looking for the wrong thing right here. That sounds like a Harlequin romance. All right, Colts make the playoffs if they win out. And the Chargers lose out. Colts get the Giants and the Jags, 9-8. We've already discussed that. If the Chargers lose to the Raiders and the Patriots, the Colts would win the conference record tiebreaker if there are only two teams with 9 wins. And multiple team scenarios involving L.A., but the Colts will make the playoffs if these two scenarios happen. This is according, I think, to the NFL. I'm going directly to the source on this to make sure it's 100% accurate. If the Broncos lose to Cincinnati and Kansas City and the Colts win out, the Colts make the postseason. If Cincinnati or Miami win out or the Chargers lose out, Cincinnati and Miami won Sunday, as we well know. So the dynamic worked out on Sunday. Colts won. Cincinnati, Miami both win. Colts lose head-to-head tiebreaker to Denver if it's just those two teams. If L.A. is also 9-8, it wins the division tiebreaker over the Broncos due to the head-to-head and advances to the wildcard tiebreaker. In this scenario, the Colts and the Dolphins would have the best conference record at 7-5, eliminating the other possible teams. Indy beat Miami, putting them in the postseason. So that is up to date as it stands according to the NFL right now. And I know a lot of you are going, if you hit this anymore, I'm going to turn you off. And then I counter with, you're only allowed this time of year to turn a dude on. JMV, in retrospect, if the deck was shuffled, would any of the road teams fared any better against a different home team in the college football playoff? A lot of that stuff would have happened, there's no doubt. I'm not going to mask my disappointment in how IU went about their business because it was a 180 compared to how they ended up getting there and what brought you in, what got you excited about it. Doing things for the first time. The bravado thing was it. I wouldn't expect Curt Cignetti to be anything else. Can you imagine all of a sudden if Curt Cignetti started, they're just a really good team, and for example, can you imagine all of a sudden if Curt Cignetti took on the personality of Shane Steichen? Would anybody dig that? And it's nothing against Shane. That's just his personality in general. But nobody wants to hear that coming out of Curt Cignetti's mouth anymore. Ever. Because that also was what the season in IU football was about. So, Cignetti in vocal content won out guns blazing in a blaze of glory. But guiding his team on the field, they were far from that. That was disappointing. It's from Josh. Chargers going to lose both games. The Colts going to lose to the Jags and miss the postseason again. That's just the way it's supposed to work with the Colts. Imagine that. From Jared, do you think Jim Irsay is crazy enough to clean house and give the keys of the castle to Belichick? Belichick's the head coach at Carolina. Jared, my good man. So, to answer your question in short, no. No, not. All right, 239-1070 is the number. I got some calls to get to. We'll do that, JJ, top of the hour. Golden State hosting the Pacers tonight, the third and final on this three-game Western Road swing. In San Francisco tonight, 9:30, your coverage begins with Pat Boylan right here in this here studio. Happy holidays to you. All right, 239-1070. Mike is in Brooklyn, New York. Hello, Mike. How are you?
Hey, JMV, what's up?
What do you think about yesterday?
Listen, I got to confess, I'm with you, but it's in my DNA. I got to always keep hope alive. Well, there's hope, even if it's one of those, Dumb and Dumber, you're saying there's a chance.
No, and I'm not trying to, don't get me wrong here. I'm not trying to take that away from anybody. I want to make sure, even in all this, that the reality is something that is not lost on people. You know what I mean? Because there is still a reality out of all this.
There's not much fun in it, but it was nice to see them run. Focus on the run. Naturally, they gotta. They can't give you a stress-free Sunday without getting aggravated. By letting them back in the game. Which I could have used after. I'm still not over the Broncos debacle from the week before. So So now I got an interesting dilemma. I got to drag my behind out to MetLife Stadium on Sunday.
Yes, you do.
And I'm not going to have. My problem is I'm not going to have any problems getting good seats like behind the Colts bench or anything. But my problem is trying to drag some of my buddies to go with me because most of my friends are like Jet fans.
Nobody wants to go, huh?
No, my Giant buddies are totally done with their team, and I'm trying to get creative. I'm gonna resort to like bribery, like a steak dinner or something, to try and get somebody to go with me to watch this game.
What's the latest on Drew Lock? Did Drew Lock have an MRI on his shoulder? I can't believe that I'm actually caring and asking whether or not Drew Lock had an MRI on his shoulder and how that is going to bear out coming up on Sunday. Weird.
Yeah, and they got this DeVito. It actually might scare me because, as you know, the Colts are famous for getting a guy who's about just off the street. Yeah, and they'll turn him into Joe Montana.
Yeah, so, they were trying to do that to Mason Rudolph at the end yesterday. Well, they not? At the beginning and then the end, I guess.
Gus Bradley deserves a lot of credit. He's should be a real innovator. He's the guy who plays prevent. Most prevent defenses are designed to let the offense go on 10, 12 play drives, catch it underneath. But his prevent defense, you just give up chunk plays. You go right down the field and score.
Yeah, they do. There's no doubt about that. They were playing pretty far off. It's bad. It was getting a little bit tight there down the stretch for sure.
Yeah, I think all the rest of that stuff. Actually, it was pretty good seeing Irsay in the locker room. I hadn't seen him in the Colts locker room for a while.
Yeah,
so he was there. He was there enjoying it.
Well, keep us updated from MetLife, obviously, for next week as well. Have a fantastic Christmas in Brooklyn, New York. That does sound like a blast. It was funny, I was playing pickup basketball last night with a friend of mine, and he moved to Brooklyn from Chicago for his job, and he works in Manhattan, but it was too expensive to live in Manhattan, so he lives in Brooklyn. So that's what he's on.
This is my neighbor. That's the story of my neighbor.
Mike, stay in touch, man. Have a great holiday.
Yeah, same to you. You and yours, JMV.
Mike, you got it, buddy. Thank you. Mike in Brooklyn, New York. It's from Mike here in Irvington. JMV, do the Colts have one position group that is better than good? I don't think so. Framer, Irvington. Better than good. I think they have two players. I think both Stewart and Buckner. I thought Buckner was a badass yesterday. I think those two guys are good, but it's two dudes from a position group. So, no, I would answer with no. I know that sounds incredibly pessimistic, but I answered the question, no. Alex chimes in. I am one of the fans that want the Colts to lose and miss the postseason with the slim hope of firing Ballard and everyone else. We are so far away, but they keep selling us that they're close. 38-7 yesterday. They blew that, almost blew the game. To celebrate it, at this point, I've checked out early in the season and will until a change is made. I think, and I will say this, I think if they go 9-8 either way, that everybody comes back, either in the postseason or outside the postseason. Let me take a break. We'll come back. More me, more of you. Jeremiah Johnson from San Francisco coming up at the top of the hour. Our good friend Fulton for the holiday season can chime in as well. Again, hope you're having a fantastic afternoon. I mean, hell, hopefully you're off this afternoon, too. Getting done what needs to be done. Happy holidays to you right here. More to come inside the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. A ton to talk about on this Monday going into your holiday season, your Christmas Eve of 2024 and Christmas Day of 2024, Tuesday and Wednesday. Back with you on this show Thursday, and then on the road at Tom's Watch Bar here downtown on Friday with 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Jonathan Taylor, man, what a day. 218 on the ground, 29 carries, 7.5 per. 70-yarder, 60-plus yarder, all a part of a huge running afternoon. And a shout-out to that offensive line. Like Christmas. This is Boobly right here, right? 335 on the ground for the Colts in all yesterday. 70 for Anthony Richardson. He was a much better runner, as he is a much better runner than a passer. 7 for 11 in 123, threw it 11 times. In total, 12 straight times after he threw an interception. Shane Steichen ran the football, so that does tell you something. And really, that probably more found out. That was probably more of a creator of a great running day than anything else, was that interception. Hey, by the way, I did want to wish you this. Happy Festivus. Anybody celebrating Festivus tonight? Festivus for the rest of us? You know what we're talking about over there, Nathaniel? You know Festivus, you Seinfeld fan? You know what episode Festivus was created in? Was not Festivus. They wished, in hindsight, they would have called that episode the Festivus, but they called it the Strike instead. So you know. Shout out to Frank Costanza, the late Frank Costanza. Actually, it was the father of one of the writers that actually came up with the real Festivus idea in the mid to late 1960s, and then obviously they took off on it in that 1997 episode of Seinfeld. Happy Festivus to all. It's Festivus for the rest of us. Like Fulton at 239-1070 right now. How you doing, buddy? Fulton, are you there?
Yes, I am.
How you doing, buddy?
Good. How you doing? Excuse me.
You don't sound excited. You're normal.
Yeah.
I didn't get, hey, what happened? You're too dialed down today.
Yeah. So I just want to wish you a Merry Christmas.
You too, buddy. You too. What do we got going on?
Well, I'm at the library to get me checked out. So.
Do you have to be quiet for a reason, or you're around people?
Yeah.
Is that what you're telling me right now?
Yeah.
All right. Who's with you, buddy?
The what?
Who's with you? Your family?
Yeah.
I don't like how Fulton's really quiet. He's very respectful of his family members. I'm going to get too loud and too wild on this radio talk show right now because I'm around family members. You're awesome. Hey, Merry Christmas to you and your entire family, Fulton.
Yep, sounds good.
Take it easy, Fulton. That's Fulton right there. Very respectful to those around him. There's our guy, Fulton. Well done. All right, quick break. We'll come back. We got JJ on the other side. Pacers try to go 3 for 3 on this Western road swing. Phoenix on Thursday. Yesterday in Sacramento. They go back-to-back. They're at Golden State coming up later on tonight. 9:30 your coverage begins right here on The Fan with Pat Boyle and Jeremiah Johnson. Pacer TV going to join us live from San Francisco. On the other side, more of your thoughts. We'll go with the Colts. We'll go with the weekend of college football, including IU and Notre Dame. And Stephen Holder is going to join us in the 5 o'clock hour. Happy Festivus, everyone. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Welcome back to the show. Stephen Holder's going to join us at the 5 o'clock hour. Colts a 38-30 winner over the Titans yesterday. Still in it as far as the AFC playoff picture is concerned. We'll go over that coming up in a minute as well. Now, I wanted to immediately out of that go to JJ, Jeremiah Johnson of Pacer TV. But we did get a quick call because it's Festivus. Let's make sure we're worthy to the fact that Frank Costanza has phoned from heaven. Hello, Frank. How are you?
How's it going, John? I just want to wish everybody happy Festivus. I want to air some grievances I have with the Colts, and what a game with the by the Pacers. I tell you, Ben Shepherd and Nemhard back in the lineup makes a world of difference with that team. I think
they do. There's no question.
Ben Shepherd just on fire last night. So, boy, if we can keep that up, that's great. The one thing I don't want to hear from Chris Ballard at the end of the year, 9-8 is probably what we're going to be. But the one thing I don't want to hear is we were a few plays away. Like he said last year, we were a few plays away. We are not a few plays away. So that's all I want to say. I got to get back to decorating my pole and start the human fun. But I'll listen to you. Another great show. Happy Festivus.
Thank you very much. Frank Costanza right there celebrating Festivus from heaven. We will air your grievances for the rest of the show at 239-1070 coming up. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, no grievances being aired here because I happen to think the last two games, hopefully it continues tonight and throughout because as I've stated a couple of different times, that's what I'm talking about, Pacers. From Pacers TV, Jeremiah Johnson's live in San Francisco in front of this Golden State Pacer matchup tonight. That's what I'm talking about, JJ.
Yeah, the NBA Cup gave the Pacers a lot of practice time, and they took advantage of it. And I do think that the team we've seen really over the last, let's say, 6 games, they've won 5 of 6, although the one loss was one that could have been the season changer. That loss to the Charlotte Hornets that maybe got them to all just sort of open their eyes and realize what needed to change. And it was not insignificant to get Andrew Nemhard back first and then Ben Shepherd, and then if you see maybe Aaron Nesmith in the next couple of weeks, you'll start to be more like the team that you enjoyed watching last season and all the fans did as well.
That's Jeremiah Johnson again, Pacers TV later on tonight, 9:30. They'll get underway just like they will right here and get you set for the Pacers and Golden State. We will go over how Golden State has been playing. Just less than a week ago, a 50-point beatdown on the road in Memphis in which Steph Curry didn't have a field goal, which was really ugly. We'll go over that in just a second. But we had Frank Costanza from heaven call in and mention just having Andrew Nemhard and Ben Shepherd being back and healthy and still awaiting the return of Aaron Nesmith. And certainly with the 2 guards back in the fold, that has been very helpful.
It has. A lot of people were saying, well, there's a lot of players hurt around the league, and the Pacers had, you could argue, their 4 best scorers healthy during the stretch they weren't playing well. But we may have had that conversation 2 or 3 weeks ago, in that might have been better off for the team if you removed one of those and had one of your glue guys or your better defensive players available, because you were just not balanced in terms of offense and defense and maybe doing some of the little things. And let's be honest, the ball just wasn't moving around the perimeter as much as we have seen of late. And to have 7 in double figures, you look at last night's game. Now, if they'd have played a little more in the fourth quarter, you might have seen Miles Turner or Pascal Siakam get above 20. But it's really a recipe for Pacers success to have balance, to have 7 in double figures. And that efficiency at the end of the first quarter from the second quarter on was as good as you will see. And that's just part of having everyone involved. There wasn't really one player that came in the game and didn't contribute. You could say Benedict Mathurin didn't have a good scoring night, and I know he missed a couple of layups, but a couple of those rebounds he got, you did not see from Benedict Mathurin at the start of his career. So I love the fact that everyone felt like they contributed, and that's how you have a happy team over an 82-game season, is everyone getting a chance, everyone feeling like they did their part, and they did that in a major way against the Kings. And it was rare to see that crowd hear it quiet and then hear it raining boos down on the Kings on Sunday.
It's funny. You mentioned the ball movement, and I told everybody at the outset, I said, all you box score viewers and think you know the game just because you read the box score, what you really need to do is to watch the ball movement. And the fact that it sticks in places where you know it's going to. It's going to stick with Siakam, and it's going to stick at times with Matherin. But you've got Tyrese Halliburton doing his normal orchestration, getting guys in the position, the ball delivered to where they're feeling most comfortable in scoring. The ball is popping the way that it should be. That's all I think you have to do beyond anything else is to watch the way the ball moves compared to the way it was when we're all kind of down in the dumps about this team.
Really, just track the assists. 11-2 when they have at least 30 assists. So 11 of the 14 games they've won, they've had at least 30 assists. And in that recent stretch that I mentioned where you've won 5 of 6, you've won 4 in a row on the road, all of those 5 wins, the Pacers had 30 assists. And then they had that number going away last night with the 36. So with ball movement, and you still have to finish. You still have to knock down some open shots. And there are going to be some nights where maybe the ball is moving and you just don't finish. That'll happen. So I would say don't freak out if tonight's that night or if you have one of those, not to be foreshadowing anything negative. But I do think over the last couple of weeks you have seen Pacers basketball, and I think they're all aware of what it takes for this team to be successful, and they seem to be in a really good spot. I think just weather the storm over the last week of 2024, and maybe it won't be a storm. Maybe it'll continue to be sunshine. But to have Warriors, Thunder, Celtics, Bucks, that's still a tough slate to close 2024. But it'll come back to you as you turn the calendar into 2025. And after tonight, they'll have played, I believe, 18 road games already, and that'll be the most in the NBA. So a really positive stretch coming up as we go into 2025.
From Pacers TV, Jeremiah Johnson on the Indy Automotive Group hotline. Pacers and Golden State tonight. That tip is at 10. 9:30 coverage begins both on Pacers TV and right here on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan with Pacer pregame. So Aaron Nesmith, we've seen Shepard back. We know now Nembhard's fully back in the fold. What's the expectation on Nesmith and his return?
He's done a lot in the pregame sessions and a little bit more in practice the last week or so than he had done up to this point. I think he still has some boxes to check off and some things to clear, and we've yet to hear Rick Carlisle change his status or see on the injury report from out to questionable. So that would probably be the next step. But even when he was initially injured, and that seems like a long time ago, and really what an unfortunate break that was, because he is a very durable player, and it was just a freak situation where he landed on Willie Green's foot out of bounds.
Yeah, because these jackass coaches are on the stinking floor is why.
Yeah.
Which that stuff really pisses me off. Well,
he wasn't on the floor, but he was down towards the end of the bench where you don't
get near the players. You don't get near if you're the coach, get your ass out of the way.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a coach's box. At least there used to be, right, in college and in high school. And
how about just do you need a coach's box not to get near players on the floor and not to be a jackass? I mean, they don't even need a box for that, do you?
I guess my point is, a lot of players go to the corner and shoot that three-pointer, and there's no reason for you to stand down there, and that's where Willie Green was. And so we didn't say anything, but I wasn't real pleased, and I think others weren't as well with where he was at. He was not on the court. But again, I never see coaches standing that far down towards the end of the bench during games. Again, that's an unfortunate situation, and it was a serious ankle injury that has caused him to be out a considerable amount of time. But having Nembhard, having Ben Shepard back, they do some of the things that Aaron Nesmith does. And again, if you get him back, you're just a complete team, and that'll help the team into 2025.
JJ is on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So tonight, is that going to mark the first time that Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield play one another? Because they're longtime friends and teammates formerly with the Kings. Is this the first time?
Yes, it will. Buddy Hield, of course, longtime with the Kings, was in Sacramento when the Kings drafted Tyrese Halliburton. Last season, I did double-check because I wasn't 100%, but earlier today I did check that. When Buddy was with the Philadelphia 76ers towards the end of last season, there were no Pacers-Sixers games. So I'm looking forward to seeing Buddy. I did talk with someone with the Warriors earlier today, Raymond Ritter, the great PR man, and I just asked him how Buddy was, and it sounds like he's not changed in terms of no one getting more shots up, including Steph Curry. No one gets more shots up than Buddy Hield, and he's also, as he said, the loudest person on the bus. So you miss some of what Buddy brought to the team. You appreciate the time that he did spend with the Pacers, and it will be good to see him. And I'll be interested to watch some of the back and forth, as you mentioned, between good friends Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield.
So last time out, I think I saw the Warriors beat the Timberwolves, and before that it was that beatdown they took in Memphis. So Trayce Jackson-Davis was back in the starting lineup. Was that because Draymond Green had an injury and he missed that game against Minnesota? Is that why?
I believe so. I know there have been different times this season that the Warriors have experimented with different lineups, but Draymond Green did not play in that win in Minnesota. So Trayce Jackson-Davis, as you mentioned, in that starting lineup. There's been a lot of other times this season, though he started, just you saying that got me to check. It looks like the first 17 games of the year, he was in the starting lineup.
He was,
so
yeah.
He can start alongside Draymond Green. They've got a unique situation where, when you're a high-profile team like the Warriors and you start to struggle and you're in trade rumors, a lot of the players don't like that too much. And I saw maybe subliminal message from Jonathan Kuminga in his social media last night. And things are not great in Golden State. So if you're the Pacers, maybe you take advantage of maybe some people looking over their shoulder, being concerned about what might happen. And maybe still some of those vets and those youngsters, they don't seem like a perfect mix. Now, I'm not lumping Trayce Jackson-Davis in that category because I do think he can fit in with everyone, and I don't think he is the person that Steve Kerr was mentioning in one of his recent press conferences about learning to play well with Steph. But everything is not great at Golden State. And you know what, John? The Pacers are the only team in the NBA that has not lost at the Chase Center. They're 5-0 in this building. It'll be tough on short rest, second half of the back-to-back, but they're going to try to extend that streak to 6 tonight.
Yeah, it's funny. I think Kyle Anderson's in the starting lineup too, but Trayce, there was a point in time, maybe 3 weeks or so ago, his clock really shrank. And Looney was playing a hell of a lot more there, and it seemed like Golden State for a time certainly was going small. Then they make that move for Dennis Schroeder, who is in there now and in the starting lineup, and Draymond Green missed the last game, and they have Kuminga coming off the bench. And as you mentioned, he's been in a lot of trade rumors, didn't have a good effort against Minnesota, so they do have some things, especially for a team that started out incredibly well, as Golden State did.
Yeah, and to your point, 12-3 was how they started, and Trayce Jackson-Davis started the first 15 games of the season and actually started the first 17. So he did not hurt the Warriors when he was getting extended minutes this season. So we'll see what happens. I'm interested to watch the Warriors. I always see a number of Pacers fans in these games out here as well. We saw a number of them in Sacramento, and many of them decided to make it a 2-game trip because it's a short trip from Sacramento to San Francisco. So I'm expecting to see a number of Pacers fans. And again, this is a team that could not be feeling better about itself. What a difference 3 weeks makes, because you were texting me in early December, and I know you did not enjoy what you saw. A much different team right now in Indiana.
2 weeks ago, Sunday at home against Charlotte, I thought that was maybe one of the more half-assed efforts that I have seen. Maybe the most half-assed effort I've seen about this group. And it wasn't even – I recognize the injuries and guys not playing, but it just – that was not a good look whatsoever. So I think that's maybe at the point in time when it boiled over for me.
And the crazy thing is, the Pacers right now have played 14, 15, 29 games, and they're 14 and 15. And last year through 28 games, they were 14 and 14. And you know how that season ended. So despite everything that you didn't enjoy from November and parts of December, they are in position to make a run. And outside of Boston and Cleveland, I don't feel like anyone's running away from the pack in the Eastern Conference. So, again, just kind of hold serve here in this final week of December and then go on another run. And more importantly, get guys healthy and get them to stay healthy. And I think you'll be in a really good position second half of the season.
Well, I will say this, too, that Horse's ass that was ripping my mom because she liked Obi Toppin's not ripping my mom anymore on social media.
Who would dare
so that's
do
good.
such a thing?
Yeah, some Horse's ass named Jose something or other.
Okay, well,
I'm minding my own business. I'm minding my own business, and he's ripping my mom. Yeah.
How could you? Yeah. For one, how could you rip John's mom, first of all. Second, have you watched Obi Toppin in December? I mean, this guy, he's hit double figures every game. He's sort of key with the Pacers playing their style because of how well he gets out and runs, knocks down those three-point shots. When you don't have Buddy Hield and maybe some of that three-point shooting, you've got to have your guys that can knock down that catch-and-shoot opportunity to catch it and to shoot it. And he's had a really good month. And, again, I think he's sort of part of that Pacers DNA right now. And so you'll not hear me say a bad thing about John's mom or Obi Toppin.
You got that right. Don't do it, Jose. I'm curious regarding Obi, too. Is he the highest leaper the Pacers have ever had? And, again, they've had a number of guys. I mean, hell, even going back to, Fred Jones, Kenny Williams could get up back in the 90s. Darnell Hillman obviously could get up. But when Obi went up and got that lodged at the top of the backboard basketball, with basically, he didn't even put a lot of jump into it. He just leisurely went over and jumped up. And then you had, the regulator come off the bench and went, "Why, you got to be kidding me." And everybody was kind of shocked at him doing that. The Pacers had anybody that ever got up that high? Because that was near the top of the backboard.
That was incredible, and we saw it in New York, so now that's the second time that it's happened, and I think everyone is going to just start looking to Obi if it gets stuck again. Was there a James White that was
Yes.
quite the high flyer? That is the only person that I can think of in my time.
White? I didn't know if he was high-rising like that. I think he could get up there and stay a little bit. I think that was his thing.
Okay, well, Obi Toppin is, as Eddie Gill likes to say, he's not human or he's not from here. I mean, what he does. And even in that, the East Bay without the dribble, and I thought it was really fun that Tyrese Halliburton shared with us that they were at a film session before the Suns game, and they were looking at clips from last year's Suns game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and apparently Obi did the East Bay then, and Lloyd challenged Obi saying, "We've not seen this in a while. We need another one." And on command that night, he did it again without the dribble. I mean, it was quite a night for Obi Toppin.
Yeah, it's more fun to watch now. I just thought, again, the thing that you mentioned assists, and you're absolutely right. But the ball movement to me is really the telltale sign of how you think, to me, things are going right with this group. Plus, I will say this, I think their defense has been better, too. They gave up 37 to Kevin Durant, but most teams will give up 37 to Kevin Durant and do that often. But defensively, I think it's been better, too.
Yeah, well, it helps to have Andrew Nembhard and now Ben Shepherd, two guys that you can trust to go on players like Kevin Durant or really good wing players. Will be interesting to see the matchups tonight with Steph Curry because obviously it'll be Andrew Nembhard, but if Andrew doesn't have time or foul trouble or any situations like that, you'll be curious to see how you just choose to defend him. And you don't want to let Buddy Hield get any open looks tonight as well. So the defense is much improved. You want them to continue to sustain that, but I believe it's over the last 8 games, they're in the top 10 in the league and 21st last check for the season, which when you start 29th or 30th after about a month, you're doing something right to get that back up to around 21st, and we'll see if they can get back towards, let's say, February, March. If you're around 15th in defense and you can get back to top 5 in offense, that's really how this team is built.
So are you cool with the Pacers not playing on Christmas? Are you okay with that being OKC here on Thursday?
Oh, you think those two teams had a little bit of a gripe because of where they finished last season?
Well, last year and then being out of it, I don't know. But, again, it's probably better off for you and your colleagues, right?
Yeah, I'm good either way. I'm certainly appreciative to have the time off at home with the family and have the game on the 26th, actually, more importantly, at home, because in the last 10 years, it feels like almost every single December 26th game has been on the road, which has meant a Christmas night flight somewhere, Detroit, Chicago, New Orleans. So I'm happy about that. But for the franchise, it would be a great sign of respect and attention, and it would be good for everyone to see them in that high-profile spot. And I think if you maybe put another run this season together like you did last season, maybe they'll be in position to be under consideration. But you kind of have 10 teams that play on Christmas, and after you check LeBron and Steph, and the Knicks always have the Madison Square Garden game, and at this point, Wemby, Giannis that's a surprising one.
Is he?
The Bucks are
Milwaukee's not in it?
Christmas.
Oh, okay.
No,
Yeah.
that was a big story coming out of it, and they asked him if he was upset about it. So the Thunder are probably the team maybe that has had an even bigger gripe than the Pacers. They should, based on where they were last season record-wise, they should have probably been maybe under consideration. But I'm okay with it. Selfishly, it's okay to have the 24th and 5th off.
All right. It is Festivus, as I documented before you came on here. Festivus for the rest of us. Do you have any grievances that you would like to air in this incredibly public forum right now, JJ?
No grievances.
No
I'm
grievances?
all good.
Not one.
No.
Come on, man.
I mean, if you'd asked me a couple weeks ago, I might have had some. I mean, I probably do have
No,
some.
I'm just in
but I
general.
don't know that,
Not about
I
the
don't know that
Pacers.
Yeah, again, I probably do have some, but I'd probably best keep them to myself and not air them here.
That makes us even more intrigued, buddy. Hey, I'm going to give you. You can pass this along to Chris and Quinn. This is my grievance. Have them never ever say, and obviously this was the truth. I think this was Denary that last week said he was surprised now when Obi shot it and missed it. And then once that just was a bubble came out of his mouth, I think like the next 5 or 6 shots Obi took, he missed all of them.
I thought you were going to say in the middle of possession with about 3 on the shot clock, then saying that's good defense, and then a shot goes in, right? That happens sometimes.
That always why do they do that? I'm gonna have to get on him for that too. Yeah, this is great defense, and then the team will throw in a shot up against the shot clock every time.
It may not be every time. It just feels
like
it, right?
it. Yeah. I think if it happens once, it's too much, right?
Well, you want to reward great defense, right? So they're seeing it, and then sometimes the shot goes
but you can reward it after the shot clock expires and there's a miss, not in the final 2 seconds. Oh, this is great defense. Oh, too bad. So, no. Hey, buddy, we'll be watching.
We say that with love, right? I mean,
we do.
It gets back to them, yeah.
All right. How's San Francisco's weather for you today?
It's kind of rainy and overcast. Not a spectacular day in San Francisco. Not that I've had a lot of extra free time, but yeah, it's not great here today.
All right. We'll have at it. We'll be watching later on tonight. Appreciate you, JJ.
All
you
right.
and the family have a great Christmas.
Back at you, and appreciate all the listeners and the fans. And stay up late tonight. Watch Pacers basketball. You don't need to get up early tomorrow, right?
I'm going on with Alex Golden later on tonight, so it all is going to determine whether or not I'm going to be in a pissy mood. So,
well, don't be. No matter what happens, obviously you want to be 15 and 15. If you go, if you're 14 and 16 through 30, that's probably better than you would have thought at 10 and 15.
Yeah, I know it. Hey, by the way, shout out to 33. 33 had a really good game against Sabonis. Even Sabonis had 17 and 22 numbers. To get to 17, he had to shoot it 22 times. I thought 33 played and stood his ground about as well as you could.
Even though the game was tied at halftime, there was a stretch there in the second quarter where I really felt like the defense locked down.
Yeah.
And there were 3 or 4 possessions where Miles' knowledge of Domas and his moves helped him get those stops. He didn't bite for any of the fakes. He knew where he was going to go, often to the left, and he got the stops right there. And that if you're down 5 to 10 going to halftime, you're in a bad spot. You were tied, and then you just erupted in the third quarter. So I think it was a good point. It was an efficient game and good defense on Sabonis.
All right, buddy. Have a great holiday, man. Great broadcast tonight. We'll talk to you when you get back.
Okay, take care.
Jeremiah Johnson, Pacers TV on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. 9:30 for TV, 9:30 for radio right here on The Fan as well. All right, Nathaniel, let's take a break. We'll come back, and you can air some grievances on this Festivus if you would like at 239-1070 if you so desire. Not even necessarily in the realm of sports, but if you want to keep it between the lines of sports, you certainly can, because we celebrate Festivus with the airing of some grievances. 239-1070. Other side, Stephen Holder, top of the 5 o'clock hour. Colts win, still in the playoff picture. We'll recapture what it's going to take to get them there at 9-8. Coming up in just a bit as well. Don't go anywhere. AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live and 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Matt Taylor on the call right there. A.D. Mitchell with the catch. And it was challenged by Brian Callahan. It was as a catch upheld, the call on the field. And the Colts a 38-30 winner. Yeah, somebody had asked me this. We came back in with How the Grinch Stole Christmas and that glorious theme song right there, right? So somebody had asked me my favorite Christmas holiday classic, not music-wise, but television show, be it cartoon or what have you. Well, obviously it's Die Hard at the top of the list. That is number one. But Rudolph, Frosty, sure. But I'm telling you, the sneaky best might just be the cartoon with the mouse writing the scathing letter to Santa, and Santa saying, you know what, the hell with you, I'm not even going to come to your town, mouse. Like the mouse nearly screwing the entire town. You guys know what I'm talking about? Remember the mouse? He wore he was like Barney Google glasses wearing nerd mouse. Pissy letter to Santa. Santa goes, yeah, whatever. I just won't even stop by. Hell with you guys. I mean, you're mice anyway. What the hell you want? Cheese, peanut butter. Poked a hole in the cereal box. Who cares? 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, I believe, is that 1974 cartoon classic. Dorky mouse screwing everybody's world up right there. Yeah, obviously Christmas Vacation. Still one of the all-times. Christmas Story, still one of the all-times right there. Does anybody just put that thing on TNT? I think it's TBS and TNT, is it not? Not. Check that back. I think maybe it's just TBS, because I think TNT may end up having some basketball games too. Does anybody just put it on and just let it roll throughout Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, A Christmas Story? And just let it go? Pretty special day indeed. Celebrating Festivus with your grievances. If you're wanting to know about the airing of grievances at Festivus dinner, you gather your family together. You gather them around and tell all of them ways that they have disappointed you over last year. So if you want to air your Festivus as we celebrate today, Festivus, your grievances, you certainly can at 239-1070. Stephen Holder's going to join us coming up at the top of the hour. Now we're going to get together like a family, but I guess this is kind of like a family environment. So ways that I have disappointed you this season, this year. Wait a minute. I don't know if I want to open up that can of me right there. Festivus for the rest of us in the airing of grievances. Yeah, we'll do that. Jeremiah's at 239-1070. Hello, Jeremiah. How are you?
JMV, thanks for taking my call. Nice having Jeremiah and Jeremiah show today.
I love it. Back-to-back Jeremiahs are always good. Now, if we heard from a Melissa, that would be the best part right there. We need a Melissa to call in sometime.
She's sitting right next to me. I'm telling her to tell you happy Christmas, happy holidays, and Merry Christmas. But
Merry Christmas.
Oh, I love Melissa. She is so awesome
there
there. You are the luckiest human being alive. You know that? You're so fortunate.
I am, brother. I am, brother. Hey, you forgot one on your list, and
What's
I'm
that?
kind of surprised. And I tweeted this to you yesterday, I think. The great Phoebe Cates is in the movie Gremlins, which is a Christmas movie.
You know, this is a true story right here. And I know this is going to be shocking to not just you that may not know this, but everybody out there. I have never seen Gremlins in its entirety. Ever.
Wow.
Ever.
Wow.
And my daughter's kind of into all this 80s stuff now, and she digs Gremlins. And I was a big fan of Hoyt Axton, too. And I know Hoyt Axton was a part of it. You mentioned Phoebe Cates. I was never interested in it. So there are 3 80s films that I've never seen in their entirety because I'm just not that. Actually, 2. I have seen the 3rd in its entirety, but they don't really interest me. So it's the Gremlins, and it's A Princess Bride, which I've never seen. and
Yep.
Back to the Future. I have seen that, but I'm just not interested in it. I like the theme song with Huey Lewis on the News much more than I do the film itself.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
No, the only grievance I've got is to air is I said this earlier, I think, to someone is, the Coach Signetti, bit on ESPN. That's my only grievance. It was a good season, but don't go writing checks that you can't cash, my friend. That's kind of where I'm at on that.
So, do you think he shouldn't have done it at all, or you just didn't like the bravado in which he spoke in that interview?
I didn't care for the bravado.
I gotcha.
I think if you got to go in there and say, hey, we're looking to win, no coach is going to say, yeah, they're going to kick our you-know-whats, or, hey, we don't want to win this game or whatever, or this is going to go as expected. You got to kind of build up the troops in any kind of pregame speech. But you just got to do it like in a manner. I think that was more along the lines of like a Belichick or even a Saban, for instance. Just make it short and sweet. Don't try to put yourself on Front Street so you're going to be ridiculed later on, in my opinion.
All right. Hey, you and Melissa have a fantastic Christmas, and we'll see you on the other side after. We'll see what we do. We were thinking about trying to do a JMV Takeover live this weekend. I'm not quite sure we're going to be able to get that together, but we'll see. I'll let you know.
My brother, let us know because we're looking forward to it. We missed you.
You got it, buddy. I appreciate you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to Jeremiah and Melissa. Here's what I thought. Whether you think it was ill-advised for Signetti to do that interview on College Game Day right before the start of the game, or you just didn't like, again, the bravado in which he spoke, I don't have a problem with any of that, because if he were to attack that any other way, then that wouldn't be him. So I get that. My disappointment is, speaking of attack, the lack of attack this team had for Notre Dame. The collective conservatism that they showed in their overall performance, especially offensively. I just thought, what the hell, you might as well, and that's what they did. That's what they did with bravado throughout the season. That's what they did not do. And they still may have had their ass whipped. Don't get me wrong. But their lack of attack in that game, which did not follow suit in the way that they played to help make that season so special, to me, was the most disappointing of it all. Stephen Holder, top of the hour, ESPN, grievances being aired and more, but the Colts still in this thing. I'll give you just what they need to happen here in the final 2 weeks of the season to get into the playoff picture. That's coming up next. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. 30 was the final. Colts over the Titans. Colts are still with an opportunity postseason-wise. We went over those. And what needed to happen a little bit earlier, Colts winning out, obviously. Giants and Jaguars coming up in the final 2 weeks of the season. Pretty straightforward stuff right here. Need the Chargers to lose out. If the Broncos lose to Cincinnati and Kansas City and the Colts win out, the Colts make the postseason. So obviously you're watching what the Broncos do as well. Colts lose the head-to-head tiebreaker to Denver if it's just two teams, but multi-team is where they win it because it's conference record. We'll go over that in its entirety as well coming up on the other side. Stephen Holder of ESPN about that, about their matchup with the Giants, and then about yesterday as well with a team that was thoroughly beating down the Titans, yet left the door open, winning 38-30. But we'll go over that coming up in just a bit. And what happens if they finish 9-8? Outside the postseason? In the postseason? What's to come? Stephen Holder of ESPN, ESPN.com is going to join us on the other side. Sit tight right there. Happy Festivus to you. Happy holidays to you as well. Out the next 2 days. Back in on Thursday and on location downtown on Friday. I'll explain coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Don't go anywhere. The AAA membership lounge via YouTube Live. Become a AAA member. What a great holiday gift to somebody you love. A AAA membership. That's the AAA membership lounge via YouTube Live at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. The final two games of the season where they are as far as a low percentage still of postseason possibilities. I explained already. We talked about that. IU Notre Dame on Friday, the weekend of college football. Everybody assuming at ESPN whining and crying about it too. You had a lot of that going on. And then Shannon Sharp evidently wanting to flex, wanting to fight Kirk Herbstreit. I'm all for that. Let's see it. Saints-Packers close out Week 16 of the NFL season coming up later on tonight. And we'll get you into Christmas Eve, Christmas Day as we're off. Back with you Thursday. Thursday show in studio. Friday on the road at Tom's Watch Bar, the brand new place here downtown. Steven, ready? Meantime, Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline from ESPN and ESPN.com. A happy 23rd of December Festivus and a Merry Christmas upcoming to Stephen Holder, friend of the show here. Hello, Stephen. How are you? I'm
good. How are we doing?
Trying to sift through yesterday.
Yeah.
Which I think it's I don't know if it's a microcosm of the season. But you look at it as a fan base and those that cover the team as a little bit torn because you want to be excited about a win. You want to be excited about there still being somewhat a percentage of hope for the postseason. But knowing this can't continue long term, and if you go 9-8 and win out, that probably justifying things, that is a bit of a turnoff to some. So I think torn, to say the least, we may have a Colts fan base right now.
Probably. I think yesterday probably comes down to not so much just, how good are they or not good, but also because they took their foot off the gas. That was my big issue. And certainly they're not as good as they appeared to be at times in that game. They're also not as bad as they have looked at other times during this season. They're somewhere in the middle. They've always been that way. But the one time where they really at least threatened to put an opponent away, they still couldn't do it. And I think this was their best chance to actually do it. They just didn't finish the job. And like I said, I think they took their foot off the gas. I think Shane Steichen took his foot off the gas specifically. Jonathan Taylor being on the bench basically early in the third quarter. I mean, so we're feeling ourselves that much? We think we're that good? You know what I mean? Like, is that the conversation that we're having on the sideline? Because, I was there in Minnesota 2 years ago with many of these same players. I was there that day at US Bank Stadium when they gave up the biggest comeback in NFL history, okay? They rewrote the history books in the worst kind of way. So anyway, this is not a rant like fire anybody. It's not about that. I'm just saying, let's be smart about this. And I think they should know better to take their foot off the gas, given some of the shortcomings they've had.
Well, yeah, and the other aspect of it too, I called it being afraid of the pass. They went 12 straight times with the run. I think they discovered just how great the run was going to be yesterday, even more so by the fact that, simply put, they just don't trust their quarterback throwing the football.
Well, he had the interception, and I think they certainly went to the run after that. Now, it is interesting. I think it's a combination of things, because even when Anthony Richardson has struggled at times, we've not seen Shane Steichen go this heavy with the run. So I do think it was really a product of, man, they can't stop us, so let's just keep running it. That was, I think, the chief factor in all of that. That being said, yes, they have two options. Your option is to run it or throw it. And when you're running it like that and your quarterback is coming off a bad decision and a late throw that gets him intercepted, it's not a difficult decision. So it's the right decision, too. I will say this. Now, that kind of ratio is not sustainable in the NFL most weeks. No. You're not going to be able to throw it 11 times and win the game. That's not a real thing for the most part. However, that being said, I do think there is some sort of like middle ground blueprint where they are a run-heavy team and an opportunistic passing team with this quarterback. That is the blueprint. Again, this was not quite, the example because this was such an outlier of a game. But for them to be the kind of team they want to be, if they're going to do it with this quarterback, that has to be the blueprint, is what I just said, which is run heavy. You got get there and run behind Quentin Nelson and Bernard Raymond on that left side, who are playing great football right now, at least in the run game. Run behind those guys, make the most of that, and then put your quarterback in optimum situations, which they did, and he was able to have, I think, in a very small sample size, a pretty efficient game. But when you put too much on him, that's when you're asking for problems.
Did Steichen talk about taking his foot off the gas and as to why he felt compelled to do so after the game yesterday?
He was asked about it. I wouldn't say he answered the question with any clarity.
So
he did say,
so it was kind of like always, yeah. Okay.
What else is new, right? But I will say he did say on a couple of occasions. He said yesterday, and he also repeated it today, that something like, I've talked to a lot of the greatest coaches in the game about how to handle those situations, but then he didn't elaborate on how he handled it. So I don't know where his head is at on that, but he clearly was erring on the side of let's preserve our guys. There's no question about that. I mean, he definitely, I can't remember exactly when Jonathan Taylor came out of the game, but I feel like it wasn't long after that second long touchdown, and that was pretty early. So I think you might have got a little comfortable there. Definitely when it was 38-7, which maybe is understandable, but there was so much time left. I think it was a unique situation. Huge lead, right? You normally don't sweat with a 31-point lead, but you also don't have a 31-point lead normally with that much time left. So it was a weird sort of situation.
So Stephen Holder of ESPN, ESPN.com, he's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I know it's going to be a holiday week, obviously business as usual for them in preparation for New York. What are your thoughts on Alec Pierce? And obviously nobody knows except for them when it's time to go ahead and get him active again. But do you have any thoughts on whether or not Pierce will be good to go coming up this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, not as of yet. As of right now, he's still in the protocol. That I can tell you, and we'll just have to kind of see. This is a little bit of a different week. They're going to practice tomorrow, which they normally do not on Tuesday. So they're accelerating the week so that they can kind of have a normal Christmas. I'm sure there will be some work done on Christmas, but they're not going to have a normal practice day. And so what they'll do is that'll be the day off, the so-called off day, and then Thursday and Friday will be the normal Thursday and Friday schedule. So we probably won't know till the back end of the week, I'm thinking, on Pierce, and we'll see what happens. I mean, I would say this though, he was out there in a limited capacity late last week. Him not being cleared tells us that he either still had some lingering symptoms or just wasn't cleared, by the neurologist in that last step of the protocol. I'm not sure which one, but seeing him out there at practice in some capacity says that he was making progress in the protocol and actually made a couple of steps of progress. So that's good.
Well, 9-8, regardless, finishing outside or inside the postseason, and especially in this case with the low probability that they actually get in, will finishing a game above 500 cloak the reality of this entire situation with the Colts going into the offseason?
I hope not, because I do think there's an opportunity here to learn a lesson, okay? Because sometimes you have to be a complete awful team to learn a lesson. If you can go 9-8 and still walk away from that and have a takeaway that, okay, we fell short and we can fix this, or we should fix this, then I think that's at least a good thing. But going 9-8 and thinking you stick your chest out about it is the wrong way to handle this. And that really is going to determine how your question gets answered. I do think it has the potential to cloak, the realities of this team, which are, I think, as follows. They are a team with some talent, but I don't think enough high-end talent. And so they have enough, I think, mid-level talent to not be a terrible football team. They're not a terrible football team, but they're also not a really good football team. They are eminently mediocre, right? And so I think you have to like take that on and swallow hard and say, all right, how do we fix this? I think they can fix it with some tweaks. I don't think they have to overhaul the entire roster, but I do think there's an argument to be made that this group of players that they currently have, there's an argument to be made that this group is not the group to get it done, to go much further. But I also think, the quarterback is a factor there and all that. So I don't want to, keep all the blame on the other guys. But I would say you have to tweak this roster. The roster needs to be tweaked if you want to take a step. Big step, small step, any kind of step. Otherwise, you're, again, I think, a mediocre team that's not going to fall toward the bottom of the league, but also not taking a step toward the upper levels of the league.
I just think that regardless of the circumstances postseason, outside the playoff picture, if they win these final two games, that their selling point is going to be how close they are when in reality they're just simply not and not getting any closer.
Well, I think if they do that, it's a huge mistake for sure. And I also think this, I don't think that the fan base will buy it. I think the fan base bought it last year to a degree. And I would put myself in that category because I think the temptation was, all right, well, hey, they love this quarterback and he looked pretty good last year. That should be the difference. But again, we rubber stamped that the quarterback wouldn't struggle. But 22-year-old quarterbacks struggle. So shame on us for thinking that, okay? That's the first thing. And shame on them, more so. But the other thing is, if you stand still while everybody else is reinventing their team, then I think that lesson was learned this year, right? I mean, the Houston Texans, for example. Now, I'm not suggesting that going out and paying everybody on the market is the way to go about this, but the Houston Texans did make some pretty bold moves this year. Now, it hasn't all worked out for them. They are, in some ways, a disappointment. But with all the injuries they had, think about this. With all the injuries they've had, what if they didn't make those moves? Where would they be? They'd be a much worse football team, right? So I think in that regard, you could say it has paid off for them, even though they have fallen short of it.
I'd run a lap with their disappointment this season. Easily compared to what we've witnessed around here for a number of years.
That's right. So, and again, Stroud is still a second-year quarterback too. I mean, like, we can anoint these guys, but I mean, he's still a young guy too. So maybe those expectations weren't even fair. I don't know. But the point is, I just think, when they don't get elite play from their top players, they struggle, the Colts in particular. They really struggle when their best players don't play great. When Taylor has a big day, it's great. But when Taylor's not out there, and he had an injury this year, he has had injuries in recent years. When Josh Downs isn't out there or whatever it might be, situations like that, it's hard for this team. It gets really hard. So you have to have more of those types of players so that they can lift your team when they need a lift, frankly. So I don't know. That's how I see it. Again, I'm not saying they gotta cut bait with everybody, but you need a few more dogs and a few more guys who are going to keep your opponent up at night. Because right now, I don't see a lot of those guys.
Yeah, I don't think anybody around here is ever going to keep anybody up at night the way that this thing's currently crafted. Stephen Holder's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I did want to ask you this. Among the big three, general manager, head coach, quarterback, where's your most skepticism about them ever reaching? And obviously we've had 8 years to be skeptical about the general manager. and maybe even a ninth year coming up. But where does your highest level of skepticism lie as far as the big three positions on this team right now?
That's a good question. So, I would say the skepticism I have is with Ballard mostly, and I'll tell you why. Not because I think he's bad at his job. I mean, he has found a lot of talent, and he's a good drafter. That is true, whether people like him or not. However, the problem with Chris Ballard has been philosophical, as you know, right? We've had this conversation year after year after year. Again, I am not Mr. Go out there and sign every free agent. That wouldn't be my MO either. However, I think you can cut too many corners. And so Chris Ballard has been stubborn to a fault in that regard. Tight end, great example. Cornerback, to a degree, was an example. They've made it work, but, it's been an adventure at times. Things like that. Like backup running back. Why didn't you go out and replace Zach Moss, for example? Go get you a pass-catching running back. If you'd have done those things, if they'd have gone out there and gotten pass-catching running back, like a legit pass-catching running back, which costs you like $3 million, $4 million in today's NFL. Okay, it's play money. Get you a serviceable tight end who is somewhat of a threat. Tight end is one of the lowest paid positions in football. Okay, do you hear me? One of the lowest paid. And then I think the other position, on defense, I think they took some chances. They'll argue that it worked out, but I think there's still room to upgrade at corner. There's still room for that. So anyway, had you just made a couple of tweaks, you might be sitting here in a different position right now. You might be. What if you had a tight end who was a little bit of a threat and could get your quarterback out of a jam? What if you had, a running back who could get you through those couple of weeks when Jonathan Taylor was on the shelf and your backup wasn't Trey Sermon? I don't know, man. I just think that's Chris Ballard's problem, if you ask me, is falling in love with role players to some degree and thinking they're going to play just as good as other guys. It's a fallacy. It's just not true. It's not true. And so I can live with you not signing all the free agents in the world, but I have a problem with cutting corners at important spots to save a buck. For what? We're talking about minimal money. That I don't understand. So I think that is going to hold your team back if you do that. The other thing I would say, I'm sorry to be long-winded. The other philosophical issue with Chris Ballard that I think is worth mentioning is that he is all about building the team from inside out. Now, I am too, and you saw yesterday what a Quentin Nelson and a Ryan Kelly and Bernard Raymond could do. I mean, those guys dominated. That was thorough. The problem, though, is that you cannot do that to the exclusion of understanding that today's game is also won on the perimeter too. So they're okay at wide receiver, but I'm just saying. I mean, over the years, I just think that he has neglected, I think, that part of the game a little too much in terms of the skill position. So I don't know. We'll see where this goes, but those are my thoughts.
Let's just say the future of how the NFL's played and won is not conducive to this team in the present or the short term, and maybe even the long term here. And I think, to me, this is the issue I have with general manager, coach, and quarterback. I think if one goes, they all have to go. Because I think you've got to get on the same schedule with your GM and your coach. You know what I mean? So, if after 8 years, Chris is the guy that's not going to come back, so you're going to bring a dude in that, hey, here's your head coach. Oh, and by the way, here's your quarterback that can't throw through 11 times yesterday. And you got to go through a test pattern again for a third consecutive year to see whether or not he's going to be the guy. That's not going to be conducive to get the best candidate out there for GM. And if you do the head coach and then obviously keep the GM for a ninth year, that's not working. And I think this is all put together by the fact that I am incredibly skeptical. As much as I like him and he's athletic and that is great, I just don't think that Anthony Richardson is able to throw it and able to throw it ever. I just don't.
So what you laid out there, the disincentive for changing one spot and not the others, that's why I think they're all going to come back.
Yeah,
Because
no, that's exactly right. They're going to go 9-8, and everybody comes back, and they're going to paint this as well.
There's one other scenario
on the right path.
There's one other scenario. I'm not promising this is going to happen. In fact, I can't even suggest that it is going to happen. But this is, if it were me, if I were Jim Irsay, and I don't own a $6 billion football team, so I have no say on this. However, if I were Jim Irsay, this is how I would handle it. If you decide to bring them back, all of them, wholesale, I think it has to come in conjunction with an understanding that we're going to do things different. And I'm meaning from a roster building perspective. I mean, you ran it back, and you ran it back all right. You ran it back to a T, your exact same team, including the results, right? That wasn't the goal of running it back. So I think the roster has to change. I think you have to make a change at defensive coordinator probably, right? I mean, and I will say this about Chris Ballard. The reason that Gus Bradley is here right now, there's one reason that Gus Bradley's here right now, and his name is Chris Ballard. Okay, when they cleaned house and fired Frank Reich, they kept the defensive staff. So I don't think that Gus Bradley is necessarily some kind of awful football coach, but I think the problem is that philosophically that scheme is causing them is maybe run its course, and they have been a heavy zone team since Chris Ballard walked in the door because that's what he prefers, and he has essentially forced the defensive coordinator on both of his head coaches. Okay, just to be clear, do you realize that?
Yep.
Because Eberflus was forced on Frank Reich.
Right. Now,
they worked out. That actually was pretty good. I think that was their best defense in the last 7-8 years was Eberflus's top 2 years. But anyway, with Shane Steichen as well, Gus Bradley was essentially forced on Shane Steichen. So the guy pulling those strings is Chris Ballard. So I think you got to make a change in the roster. You got to make a defensive scheme change.
So here's what's interesting about it. I think that if they, and we both believe if they go 9-8, regardless of the circumstances at the end, they probably, quote, run this back again. They run this back again, they're going to have a whiteout every week and put white T-shirts on the seats because you're going to have the fan base that will choose to speak their mind regarding the situation that has happened over and over. I mean, we're talking about 2000 in the postseason, 2014 since a division title. I think there are going to be a lot of people out there that will suggest enough is finally enough.
No, I don't think you're wrong. I anticipate the same thing, and that's why I think if you do run it back in terms of the Trinity, if you will,
right,
coach, quarterback, and general manager. If you run that back, that doesn't mean you have to run everything else back. So I do anticipate that's going to happen. But I still think there's still room to say, all right, we got to change something. Something has to change. I think it's prudent to give the quarterback another year. That's just prudent. I mean, given the landscape out there, where they're going to draft, I mean, look, there's not an alternative, not a good one, okay? And Jim Irsay is not going the Kirk Cousins route. That's Matt Ryan all over again, right? So that ain't happening.
You think he's closer to being I'm sorry to interrupt you, too, being Allen or Lance? Is he closer to being Josh Allen or Trey Lance at this point?
I think he's more on the Cam Newton track. But can he be Cam Newton? I'm not saying that he can. But if he becomes something, I think it's a Cam Newton track. Now, I would say this: as much as the numbers are not great, I do think he's thrown the ball better since his benching than he did before. Now, he's too inconsistent is the problem, right? He's up, he's down, he's up, he's down. But I mean, he was better yesterday in a very, very, very small sample size. And then the thing that I liked from yesterday was making the throw at the end to close it out, to ice it, right? He had to be sharp there.
I'm glad he made that throw, or this dialogue would be much different today. You know what I mean? That was kind of the linchpin of where this may or may not have gone with that particular throw. It was.
That's true.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. That's what you got to do. Those are the plays you got to make. So I'll give him that. I mean, he's been clutch to a degree, which is a gene that you can't teach because it is a gene, right? So he has that gene at least. He's somewhat clutch. Not necessarily as a passer, but just in terms of making plays, right? So that's good. That's a building block. But he's got to be more consistent on the throws. I mean, it doesn't have to be 65%, but can you get to 58%? Like, I'd take that. I think if he gets to 58% and he runs the way he ran yesterday, and your offensive line is run blocking the way it did, that is a formidable football team, but they're not quite there yet. But I think there's a path to that. Let's give them an offseason. Let's see if you can do it. I think you got to go one more.
I will tell you this. I thoroughly enjoy. I love watching him run, and I love watching him shake defensive tackles off. But I just can't get past the fact that I sit here before you right now and do not believe he's ever going to be able to throw it at a clip which is going to ever bring any higher level of winning. That's just what matters the most in this era of the NFL. So
it's a real question. It is a real question, and it's disappointing that in the grand scheme we're sitting here having to still have this conversation. It would be great, right? It would be great to just know.
Yeah.
It would be great. All I'll say for the kid is that I'd like to see him have an offseason, a real offseason. He has not had one. And there will be no more excuses next year. That's the good thing here, okay? There are no more excuses. He has to get it done. He's healthy. He's stayed on the field. They put him back in the starting lineup. So when we reset this thing next season, and if he's a starter, there's no excuses. He's going to have to sink or swim, and that's it. And whatever the answer is, whenever that decision comes, that's going to be the final answer.
You and the family have a great Christmas tomorrow, coming up on Wednesday, and we'll check in and see what happens here down the stretch. Again, I presume the Colts to be 9-8, and we'll watch on Saturday to see what happens with the Broncos and the Chargers and how all this shakes out. They'll know a lot, obviously, when they tee up the ball coming up on Sunday. So,
yeah, I think that's right. So, hey, same to you guys. And
yes.
You and your family, and enjoy it, man. Don't eat too much.
Well, yeah. Cottage cheese,
allowed,
baby.
Right?
I'm not allowed. No, I know it. I got to get to a 32 waist here. I've got to go shirtless on Carb Day for the broadcast, so I got to work this bad boy. So yes, staying down the path right now.
I'm proud of my 34. We'll see if it survives the holidays, though.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Have a great holiday.
See you.
It's Stephen Holder on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Quick break. We shall return when the return of the JMV takeover comes around on New Year's Eve. I'll explain that coming up, and we'll get to some final thoughts here before the top of the hour. The Colts update, actually, it's the Colts roundtable. That's coming up at the top of the hour. Matt, Rick, and Joe coming straight at you on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
the league in broken ribs. I want to put people in the hospital legally. No hitting in the head. I want them to cry and be scared to play us.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
.3830, Matt Taylor on the call right there. Colts over the Titans yesterday. Colts Roundtable Live coming up at the top of the hour. Matt, Joe, and Rick will be a part of that with the breakdown. Yeah, the rushing record yesterday, and Jonathan Taylor, the big day. Richardson, 70 on the ground. And that win 38-30. The Giants coming up on Sunday. They're going to know a lot of things regarding the Broncos and the Chargers that takes place before them on Saturday. But we shall see. Yet the Giants on the road coming up on Sunday, and then they close things out coming up next week at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Thank you all for joining us. And by the way, if you were watching over the weekend, too, on Saturday, Tank Dell went down with just that awful injury to the leg. The Texans claimed Deontay Johnson, who was on waivers and obviously have had all sorts of issues in the NFL recently. Reportedly, the Texans claim him off of waivers a little bit earlier today. So just a couple of thoughts right there. To Monday night, Saints-Packers close out Week 16 of the NFL. Later on this evening, get the Pacers on the road against Golden State tonight. The third of three out west. The first two in the win column. Phoenix on Thursday, and then yesterday in Sacramento. They get Golden State tonight. 9:30, your coverage begins right here on The Fan. Pat Boylan in studio with you. 10 p.m. is that tip, and I think I'm going to be doing a podcast later on this evening with Alex Golden, either during or after the game. We shall see, coming up later on this evening. All right, over the weekend, obviously IU, Notre Dame, big deal, 27-17 was the final. The game was not as close as the final score would indicate. And then with that, and SMU, and especially with IU in the crosshairs, Kirk Herbstreit kind of went crazy on the fact that IU got in because of wins and would not have been worthy of being a part of the 12-team playoff. This is what he had to say regarding that over the weekend.
Now, Kirk, how much of this softens the blow of that Michigan loss? More work to do, right, for folks to forgive and forget that one? I can't
speak on behalf of the lunatic fringe. I'm not sure how they operate. Yeah, the lunatic fringe at Ohio State is as powerful as anywhere in the country.
How big is the fringe?
It used to be 8 to 10. I think it's grown now to about 15 to 20. So I don't know. I'm sure they'll be happy tonight, be fired up about what the Ohio State team did. But God forbid they lose to Oregon. They may want to fire them again.
But that's not reality. I mean, no. That's the thing. When you hear pundits on this network and other places talk about that with certainty, it's nonsense, frankly. I mean, the public doesn't pull the trigger and get rid of the coach.
No.
The administrators do, and they're behind them.
Yeah. First Take tried to fire him. They thought he was done. So I'll be excited to see what they talk about on Monday after this performance.
All right, that was Herbstreit regarding the shot at First Take. I love this. I mean, see, this is why everything is great. I'm glad everybody was in the top 12. I'm glad IU was a part of it, SMU was a part of it, because it leads to all this dialogue and all this crap in which ESPN wildly embraces First Take, and Shannon Sharp had a counter on their craptacular program a little bit earlier today.
Even though I'm going to let it slide. I'm going to be a good teammate. I'm going to let it slide. Everybody's at ESPN, because had you not taken the route you taken, I would have lit their ass up. But I'm going to let it slide. You know what, guys? Congratulations, Ohio State. You won the game. But, hey, if we're going to be on the same team, if we're going to work for the same network, don't do that. Kurt, Chris Fowler, I promise you, If you ever mention anything, any platform that I'm on again, and talking about, I wonder what they're going to say in negativity, I promise you, ESPN ain't got enough bosses to keep me off y'all for what I'm going to say. So I'm going to let y'all slide today. I'm going to turn it over to D.O. before I get myself in trouble. But don't play with me.
D.O., by the way, is Dan Orlovsky. Here's what's funny about that is they didn't let it slide. I mean, he just kept going after it, and just stupid. Stupid stuff right there it is. Little infighting with ESPN. You're going to let it slide, and then you go for like 90 seconds all in on it. I love it. This is why, yes, put teams in there. Indiana, SM, it doesn't matter. All they want out of this is the dialogue. Everybody whined and cried about the matchups and the lack of close games on Saturday. And hell, Tennessee out of the SEC was the biggest issue of it all. Hey, I will argue to me that Cignetti going on TV prior to the game and then doing the normal Cignetti dialogue is one thing. I don't care about that because that's who the dude is. But that's not who he's supposed to be the way that he coached that up. They didn't get to where they were this season out of being that conservative. That's the part I thought stunk. It's funny, man. It is so often any longer not about what takes place. Can you imagine that? Yeah, just battle it out here. And then the thing about Herb Street is this. See, when you're around all that constant bickering and pissing and moaning, I say this all the time, you have to have some positivity someplace. You got to reach out and find it. Because if you don't, then everybody is loathing. Now, Kirk Herbstreit, who this formerly likable guy, nobody can stand watching anymore because he seems so stinking miserable at doing what he's doing. You can't let these guys make this miserable. I will say the same thing about me regarding the Colts. It is a constant negativity. Now, with good reason, because they've had a number of years to be negative. I mean, you're going on since 2020 without the postseason. You're going on 10 years now without a division tie. There's been a lot of reason to be negative, but you have to at times sneak in some positivity somewhere because you get lost in the loathing shuffle and it weighs everybody down. It's tired. I've said this all along too. When you go 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the midday, and then you get here. So we're going on 9 hours. If the Colts would have lost, or even with me, they won, and still talking about where they are right now and where they're going to be if they finish up, as I predict, 9-8. Close out with these 3 straight wins, and then what should happen compared to what's going to happen. Man, that stuff just wears you out. I love it, though. 90 seconds of I'm going to let this slide, but really going all in on it's fantastic. That from First Take earlier today. Top of the hour, Colts Roundtable Live. They'll break down the game for you, get you set for the Giants. And again, happy holidays to everybody out there. We celebrate Festivus. That really wasn't the airing of my grievance. I guess what you're going to say as well, you like to complain on your own terms. Maybe that's fair. Airing grievances and closing out the show coming up on the other side. Happy holidays to everybody. Thank you all for joining us. And again, we're back on Thursday and Friday. First things first, though, AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Thank you for being a part of that today. Become a AAA member today. We'll close up, bring you back, talk Pacers in Golden State later on tonight. There's some positivity for you. We'll do that coming up next on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Matt Taylor right there, who joins with Colts Roundtable, top of the hour. Rick Venturi. Good to see those guys yesterday, too. Joe writes, Edgerrin James on the Colts pregame huddle with us yesterday was pretty stinking awesome, too. I am going to go hoop. Nathaniel, you've done an outstanding job today. Thank you very much, buddy. Always awesome. I'm going to go do a little hoop. You know, the one thing, among all things, which are many, that I don't do well, I can't wrap a gift. I don't care how square and angled it is. Am I the only one that can't wrap a gift worth a crap?
Me neither, John. No.
I mean, everybody wraps this and it looks smooth. And, man, I might as well wrap mine. If they still had newspapers around, I'd wrap it in newspaper. It is so bad. Because what happens is I start out, I think, with great intentions, and then it becomes FUBAR, and I just say, screw it. And that's that. Just a taped-up, nasty, Christmas-wrapped mess is what I get. It doesn't matter. It can be perfect, like a perfect box. And I'll still screw it up. It looks awful. Hey, everybody out there, have a fantastic Christmas. Be safe. I want you guys back with me over and over again, too. But have a great time with friends and family, whether it's Christmas Eve tomorrow or Christmas Day. Thursday, back in studio. Friday, Tom's Watch Bar downtown with you. So we shall be back. I mentioned, too, JMV Takeover. New Year's Eve is when we return for the JMV Takeover, coming up on New Year's Eve. So that's on a Tuesday, a week from tomorrow, that will take place. So should be fun. You guys have been awesome all year long. Make sure you have a swell Christmas with you, family, and friends. Shout out to Rex, too. You should pick a fight with Swebo like Herb Street did. Swebo. Shout out to Swebo on the morning show and Query & Company as well. Our guy, executive producer Todd Meyer. James, wherever James is today, taking the day off. Nathaniel, excellent work. Let's do some Colts Roundtable Live up next. Everybody have a very Merry Christmas. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. It's JMV. Join me coming up on Thursday. We're back after Christmas. We're going to get you set for the Colts and the Giants, Pacers, and the Thunder, and more. That is Thursday at 3. Hey, it's JMV. Later on this afternoon at 3, we've got you covered with more Pacer conversation. We've got Colts and Giants preparation and more. Hopefully you have a... Let me try. Hey, it's JMV. Hopefully you had a great holiday. We're back. Hold on. Hey, it's JMV. Merry Christmas to you. We're back coming up on Thursday at 3. We got you set up for the Colts and the Giants, Pacer, Thunder 2, all that and more today at 3.